In this video, I'm going to share with you 6 side hustles that have made me over $50,000 profit per year. And now these are ones that I have tested over my 20 plus years of being self-employed. Now, the other thing that I'm going to be sharing with you is by doing these side hustles, they led me to building 2 7-figure brands. And after all of these side hustles, I'm also going to share with you what I would do today if I was starting over from scratch. So what do you say? Let's dive in. So the very first side hustle that I did, and something that's working right now today, and some people are making 6 and 7 figures from this exact side hustle, and that is something they call retail arbitrage or flipping products. It's where you buy something at a discount and you're able to resell it for more money. Now, here's how the story went down though. So back in the day, my wife and I owned a photography studio, and we were doing some research on eBay to find a prop for our studio. We were looking for a wooden cedar bridge, and we found one. And we saw it was selling for over $150. But we also remembered seeing this same bridge in a store near our home, which was called the Christmas Tree Shop. So if any of you are from upstate New York, you might have heard of this. And so we saw that they were selling them for $29.99. And what we did is we bought one and then resold it. So basically, we bought one for $29.99 and we went ahead and listed it on eBay and immediately sold it. And we sold it for $150, which was crazy. And my wife and I looked at each other and we said, let's load up the kids in the minivan, let's head back to the store, and let's grab as many as we can fit in the van. That's exactly what we did. We grabbed about 20. And then from there, we went on to sell them. And we did that for a couple of years, making over $50,000. Actually, we put our kids through private school from those cedar bridges. And the crazy thing is, I did a little bit of research. They're still on eBay right now, and they're selling for $164, and it looks like 10 have already sold. So you can see this is still working today, even though I did it years ago. Now, this isn't some side hustle that you're probably going to turn into a full-fledged brand, but it's a great way to get started and make some extra cash. Find things at a discount that people want, put them on eBay, and sell them. All right, so moving on to side hustle number 2. And what's crazy is, well, what just happened with eBay opened my eyes to eBay and what else I could sell. And so at the time, like I said, my wife and I were in the photography business. I was also doing some video work, and I was also doing some video transfer work. And I had these projectors that I converted to transfer old 8mm film. And I said, you know what? Maybe I'll go ahead and see if these will sell on eBay. And guess what? They did. And I sold over $100,000 worth of these projectors. So after about 2 years of doing this, I kind of got burnt out and I said, well, there's got to be other things that I can sell on eBay. And so I started thinking along the lines of digital products. What could I offer in a digital product? That's what I did next on my 3rd side hustle. So you're probably starting to see a little bit of a common thread here. I'm usually looking at things that I'm currently doing or that I'm interested in, and then from there, I'm looking to sell it on eBay or somewhere online. So that's exactly what happened when I launched my 3rd side hustle. So I'm interested in guitar. I've played guitar since I've been 15 years old, and I'm 50 years old at the time of this recording. So I love guitar and I love recording. Once they came out with GarageBand for the Mac, I was hooked. So if you're not familiar with GarageBand, it's a recording studio for your computer. But the one thing that they offer inside of GarageBand is something they call loops. This is where you have a little clip that is being played that you get to use to kind of build out your audio tracks or to build out your band. And so what I thought was, what if I was to create my own little clips, my little loops, and sell them? Would anyone buy them? And guess what? I created 1,000 loops. I locked myself in a room for about a day and a half. I created these loops and I started to sell them for $29.99. Yeah, almost $30. And it was a digital download. This is where eBay started to let you offer digital products. So this is where my mind was blown, because I created a digital product that eBay was letting me sell that people could just download. And I went on to sell thousands of those loops. So now at this point, you might be saying, well, Scott, are you saying that for a side hustle, I should launch loops or I should launch projectors or wooden bridges? No, what I am saying is take a look at your own skill set or your own life or your interest and see if you can create something for that market. Whether that's on eBay, whether that's on Etsy, which we're going to get to, there's a lot of opportunity there, but it's taking something and putting it for sale on a platform. All right, side hustle number 4. And once again, you're going to see I learned something in the previous one that I'm now taking into the 4th side hustle that I tested and tried that turned into $50,000 plus, actually turned into a 6-figure business. All right, so what is it? Well, now that I saw that digital products can sell on eBay, what else could I sell? Scott and his wife own a photography studio. Scott uses Photoshop. Maybe I can create some Photoshop templates for other photographers. And that's exactly what I did. And I started by just selling these templates to people that wanted to use them in Photoshop. And I offered them between $19.99 and $29.99. And that did over $50,000 plus, and it turned into a full-fledged business that my wife and I ran for over 7 years. Now, I know on this channel, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I talk a lot about Etsy because it's a great platform, and now you can offer digital products there too. Well, back in the day, I couldn't. But if I was to start over again, I would definitely be putting them on Etsy. All right, and before we move on, I want to call a little time out. I want you to see how these side hustles are leading me to other business opportunities. So you always want to be thinking about that. Even though you're starting a side hustle right now, that side hustle is probably teaching you and probably bringing you to your next side hustle that could turn into your 6 or 7-figure business. And moving on to side hustle number 5, which literally blew my mind and led me to build another 6 and 7-figure brand. So what is it? Well, it's called private labeling. This is where you can take a product, you can customize it a little bit, brand it with your name, your brand name, and then sell it on Amazon. And that's exactly what I did. So my very first Amazon private label product was Resistance Loop Bands. And these went on to do over $300,000 in revenue, about $100,000 profit, my very first 12 months testing this side hustle. And it really opened my eyes. Now, that actually led me to starting another brand with a neighbor of mine that we went on to do over 7 figures in sales. And we went on to sell that brand for a large sum of money, a huge paycheck. Now, just to rewind a little bit, when I launched my first private label product, I started to see the results. I decided to document my journey and start a podcast. And at the time, that was called the Amazing Seller Podcast. And some of you watching might be listeners of that. Thank you. I appreciate you. But a couple years back, I rebranded the podcast to be called the Rock Your Brand Podcast because I didn't want it to be just focused on the Amazon topic. Now, that podcast has done over 19 million downloads to date, and that has allowed me to launch courses and partnerships that have led to 7-figure years. Now, before we get to the last side hustle, I did just want to say, hopefully you can see that every side hustle has taught me things, but also led me to other business opportunities. It's so important that you understand that because sometimes people just want to start something that they think is going to be the ultimate business for them. But you're going to evolve, you're going to learn, but you have to get started. And that's why I'm sharing these with you today, because I want you to really start thinking about what you could do as a side hustle that you could turn into a full-fledged brand. All right, side hustle number 6 is something that I started and then my wife got involved and we kind of brought these 2 side hustles together. Here's what I mean. I started creating what they call content sites. And what these are sites that have written content that gets indexed by Google. And when people search for something, they're going to find an article that's on my website. And now you might be wondering, well, how do you get paid for this? Well, it's pretty interesting because all I need to do is get traffic to the website and I can get paid by advertisers that want to advertise on the platform. I use an ad network called Mediavine, and they handle everything for me. And this one thing right here in this side hustle, which I'm going to get to the second part of this side hustle here in a second, this here generates over $1,000 per month passively just from visitors coming over to the website. Now, one thing I should make very clear here, after doing all of these different side hustles, I've learned over the years that if I ever want to turn something into something bigger, I need to focus on a niche. And then we can start to bolt on other things. And that's exactly what we did with the second half of this side hustle. My wife started an Etsy shop, and that Etsy shop was also targeting the same niche. And now taking those two and bringing them together as a joint side hustle is earning us over $50,000 profit per year. And the other big lesson that I learned from running an e-com business is I don't like dealing with inventory. So when my wife started her side hustle, we decided to go with print on demand. This is where you can have designs that you create printed on products, and then they will handle it all for you. I say they, a company like Printify. And all we need to do is create designs, put them on their products, and then advertise them on Etsy. And I have to say, the thing that excited me the most about the Etsy thing was we didn't need to print anything, we didn't need to have inventory, and we didn't need to ship anything. And that's why I love that business model. And as you can imagine, I get asked all the time from friends, family, or podcast listeners, Scott, if you were starting over today, what would you do? And this is exactly what I tell them. Go watch that video because I break it down exactly what I would do today if I was to start over, starting with Etsy and then building a brand. Watch that video next, and I'll see you there.